A drum brake is a brake that uses friction caused by a set of shoes or pads that press outward against a rotating cylinder-shaped part called a brake drum. The term drum brake usually means a brake in which shoes press on the inner surface of the drum. When shoes press on the outside of the drum, it is usually called a clasp brake. Where the drum is pinched between two shoes, similar to a conventional disc brake, it is sometimes called a pinched drum brake, though such brakes are relatively rare. A related type called a band brake uses a flexible belt or band wrapping around the outside of a drum. Drum brake components include the backing plate, brake drum, shoe, wheel cylinder, and various springs and pins. Backing plate. The backing plate provides a base for the other components. The back plate also increases the rigidity of the whole setup, supports the housing, and protects it from foreign materials like dust and other road debris. It absorbs the torque from the braking action, and that is why backplate is also called the torque plate. Since all braking operations exert pressure on the backing plate, it must be strong and wear-resistant. Levers for emergency or parking brakes and automatic brake shoe adjuster were also added in recent years. Backplate made in the pressing shop. Brake drum. The brake drum is generally made of a special type of cast iron that is heat conductive and wear resistant. It rotates with the wheel and axle. When a driver applies the brakes, the lining pushes radially against the inner surface of the drum, and the ensuing friction slows or stops rotation of the wheel and axle, and thus the vehicle. This friction generates substantial heat. Wheel cylinder. The cutaway section of a wheel cylinder. One wheel cylinder operates the brake on each wheel. Two pistons operate the shoes, one at each end of the wheel cylinder. The leading shoe is known as the primary shoe. The trailing shoe is known as the secondary shoe. Hydraulic pressure from the master cylinder acts on the piston cup, pushing the pistons toward the shoes, forcing them against the drum. When the driver releases the brakes, the brake shoe springs restore the shoes to their original position. The parts of the wheel cylinder are shown to the right. Brake shoe. Brake shoes are typically made of two pieces of steel welded together. The friction material is either riveted to the lining table or attached with adhesive. The crescent-shaped piece is called the web and contains holes and slots in different shapes for return springs, hold-down hardware, parking brake linkage, and self-adjusting components. All the application force of the wheel cylinder is applied through the web to the dining table and brake lining. The edge of the lining table generally has three V-shaped notches or tabs on each side called nibs. The nibs rest against the support pads of the backing plate to which the shoes are installed. Each brake assembly has two shoes, a primary and secondary. The primary shoe is located toward the front of the vehicle and has the lining positioned differently from the secondary shoe. Quite often, the two shoes are interchangeable, so close inspection for any variation is important. Drum brakes are typically described as either leading, trailing or twin leading. Rear drum brakes are typical of a leading, trailing design, or primary, secondary, the shoes being moved by a single double-acting hydraulic cylinder and hinged at the same point. In this design, one of the brake shoes always experiences the self-applying effect, irrespective of whether the vehicle is moving forward or backward. This is particularly useful on the rear brakes, where the parking brake must exert enough force to stop the vehicle from traveling backward and hold it on a slope. Provided the contact area of the brake shoes is large enough, which isn't always the case, the self-applying effect can securely hold a vehicle when the weight is transferred to the rear brakes due to the incline of a slope or the reverse direction of motion. A further advantage of using a single hydraulic cylinder on the rear is that the opposite pivot may be made in the form of a double-lobed cam that is rotated by the action of the parking brake system. Drum brakes are used in most heavy-duty trucks, some medium and light-duty trucks, and few cars, dirt bikes, and ATVs. Drum brakes are often applied to the rear wheels since most of the stopping force is generated by the front brakes of the vehicle and therefore the heat generated in the rear is significantly less. Drum brakes allow simple incorporation of a parking brake,